Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me. Welcome. Good afternoon. Um, I just wanted to say hello to. I don't know whether you guys can see me or hear me. I hope you can. Please let us know if you can't. Just some housekeeping rules. There will be an ability for some of you to ask questions using the Q&A function that you find below. So please do ask as many questions as you want. We will try our best to answer as many as we possibly can. Now, I just wanted to take this time to obviously welcome the gentleman that you see on the screen, Deepak. For those of you who have read the EDM, you know that Deepak's the head of wealth development for HSBC, but Deepak's also an IBF Fellow, and today he's joining us in his personal capacity to share with us his thoughts, his personal reflections on his journey and the business that he's in, which is WealthTech, and in the hopes that people who are interested in this area will be able to leave the session a little bit more knowledgeable and make some decisions about where you want to take your career and where you want to what you want to explore, and hopefully we can demystify a few things as well. Right. I also just want to reiterate that because Deepak's is here in his own capacity, all his views are his own, right? HSBC, for HSBC opportunities, please do go to HSBC website to check out their career opportunities and apply accordingly. Now, without further ado, oh, by the way, sorry about that. At the end, we will be asking you guys to please stay on to do a very quick poll for us. The poll is very important because it helps us cater to much more targeted events that you are interested in. Okay, so please stay on the poll. The poll will only last maximum of 5 minutes, maybe even less. So thank you in advance. Okay, so without further ado, Deepak, my friend, thank you very much for being here and taking the time out to spend with us and the attendees here. I normally start the session by even in my role as a career advisor at IBF, I always ask this question. The question is, tell me about yourself. So the first question that I want to ask of you, Deepak, is tell us about yourself. Let's start with your journey. For those who've seen your profile, I noticed that you started your career sort of like in the late 90s, bachelor's degree in physics, MBA, CFA, and the list goes on, right? And to me, it seems like you were built for fintech and maybe even wealth tech because of the marriage between the finance as well as the quantitative skills, if I may say so. Can I just ask, was this planned? Was your career planned? Did you know very, very early what you wanted to do and where you wanted to go?
Hey, first of all, thank you very much, Adrian. I'm delighted to be here. It's an honor for me to be speaking on this session, which is hosted by IBF. I really loved the jazz music you played before we all came into the session, so that's quite a soothing music. But also that it takes two to tango. So let's make the session as interactive as possible. And thanks to all the audience which has been here. Feel free to ask questions as the session goes by. I'll be more than happy to answer any one of the questions which come along. So it's an interesting question to start with. You spoke about my education, physics, MBA, etc. To answer a question very bluntly and maybe disappointingly, that no, none of these were done with an objective in mind that this is where I'm going to land in life where I'm right now. All the decisions in terms of what I did at those point of time were based on what I thought I would be interested in and what I thought I would be good at. So I took those choices at that stage. And some of them were very interesting choices. Physics, for example, was because I thought I was good in science. Right after school, I went into a college which was pretty much known for its academics, and I went into that, not knowing in 2 years' time that I'm not cut out for physics. I was surrounded by super smart people who were looking at doing physics as as a future career, as educators or as scientists, and looking at PhD. And therefore, I decided to change my course to look into the business side, which is what interested me, and I did my MBA. And that took the course in terms of the banking industry. Took my first job there. Singapore is home now for me, but I started my career in India. And with my career, I came to Singapore, and I've been here for the last about 15 years, so to say. There were, CFA is an interesting choice as well, which happened around. I started the process for writing CFA exams around 2010, which is when the whole financial crisis was going on. It wasn't an interesting period for many of us who've been old enough to work at that point of time. Uh, and it was quite a uncertain period as well. So I was working in a bank which was looking at sale in the Asia context, and there were suitable buyers who were bidding for the business. It's an uncertain period. You don't know what's going to happen. Some 6-8 months of time period. You don't know which way it's going to go and how it's going to impact your career. And I thought to myself that it's a good time to sort of invest back into yourself, where not too many eyes on you right now. And that's how I decided to study for my CFA. I used to wake up at 5 a.m., study 1.5 hours in the morning before I set to work every day. CFA obviously gives you a flexibility to study at any point of time you want. It's just an exam that you have to appear. If you are solid and you think that you can appear without much practice, you can do that. Otherwise, you can be on your own flexible time. So, to answer your question is that, yeah, none of these were with a certain goal in mind. I did because I thought they interested me, these education levels. And that's how I made those choices.
That's great. I mean, a lot of the stuff that you say are very things that we work with our job seekers as well. Playing to your strengths and then discovering and not necessarily following the crowd, I suppose. But when you follow a crowd and you realize it's not you, then do find something that is you. Work on your strengths, invest in yourself, as you say. So those are sort of stuff that we share with our job seekers, and very, very happy to hear you echo that advice. And so the next question really is probably the crux of the session today. The title: what is wealth tech? Obviously we're all very familiar with fintech. It's insurtech, redtech, and so on and so forth. But what makes wealth tech?
Yeah, so I think I'm not sure there's a formal definition to it, but wealth tech will typically fall under the whole fintech world per se. It's one of the streams in that where it sort of brings together wealth management and technology in a way you can benefit individual customers, be it their experience, be it their decision making capability, be it the solutions they can get, as well as professionals making the work smoother, corporates to make the work far more easier and more efficient, so to say. And wealth tech comes in various forms. Mind you, so my remit is broader wealth development as such. So wealth tech being a component of that. But how technology comes into play is simple things. Let's take broking, for example. And I'm giving general examples from the industry. So when broking would have happened years back, it was physical meeting of brokers, a lot of inefficiencies, price movements, non-transparency, which led into online broking coming in last 3 decades, I would say, in a big way, which transformed into how it comes into your mobile app. And pretty much now you can do everything that's happening on your mobile phone. So it could be as simple as being able to execute your transactions, using the digital means, mobile apps at this point of time. It could be about how do you handle your portfolios, how do you construct your portfolios. It could be about algorithm-based portfolio capabilities as what is called robo advisory. It could be about decision tools. It could be about some sort of predictive means of your tools. It could be about helping relationship managers managing the clients better. So it can come in different facets and form. But it's really the coming together of wealth management skills as well as technology in a way that it can help the client in the most efficient manner.
Right. Okay. Just wanted to latch on to what you said, Deepak. Like for example, like technologies. I don't know whether you call it technology, like things like robo advisors, as you mentioned. In addition to that, obviously, you probably experience a lot of other cutting edge type solutions or things that you work for your customers that ultimately result in perhaps a more seamless, swifter experience for customers. But I guess as a result, what are some of the jobs or roles traditionally, or traditional jobs or roles that you see have benefited from this, and I suppose more importantly, the roles and jobs that may be even jeopardized by this?
And I'm glad you're using the word roles. So roles have always gone through a transition time over the years. I mean, if you look back at the banking industry, maybe hundreds of years back to 50 years back to 30 years back to 10 years back to now, the roles of each one of us has changed. When I joined the banking industry, about 20 years back, what I did for a bank versus what a new joiner who joins us today does is completely different. So from an industry perspective, if I were to give a reflection, I think the roles are going to keep changing. I think it's more important to understand that it's a growing field. So the number of people who are in the banking industry years back to what they are now is growing, and the many reasons for that growth is obviously the population is growing. There is always an area of underbanked, underserved when it comes to banking and wealth management. In Singapore context, there is not so much of, let's say, underbanked, but underserved. So does everybody have access to wealth management capabilities, and how do you bring it to them? So the roles will be how you therefore bring innovation in the context of wealth management, be it technology driven or non-technology driven, be it in the form of new product styles. The whole landscape of investment products have changed over the last many years. It used to be simple mutual funds, insurance, to now structures, derivative based products, and going back to simplicity again. You mentioned about robo. So how do you bring technology in a whole journey when the clients have to make a decision to help them take a much faster, quicker decision, or much more efficient decisions? So the roles will change. I guess it's not so easy to pinpoint in terms of which way they will go or the other. But clearly, as long as we all have the necessary expertise, we can or we should be able to mold ourselves in terms of how the industry evolves over a period of time.
Right, Deepak, I don't know whether this is going to be a tough question, but if I would kind of like push it a bit more. For example, I mean, with the introduction to, say your business, right? Um, what I mean, are you able to comment on like the nature of the types of roles that will be sort of like in danger, for the business that you bring in, like perhaps confirmations and operations and things like that. I mean, are any of these things in you feel like could be in danger and could benefit, and the people who are doing it could benefit from some sort of upskilling, or doing something to future proof themselves? Any insight on that?
Yeah, so I don't think I want to go into any sort of illusion of a danger, so to say. But clearly, I mean, if the question is sort of reworded, where can technology help in our day-to-day work? Um, Clearly there's room for that. And the room for that is not to sort of create any form of discomfort in terms of what we're doing, but to make a day-to-day job easier. I've lived through, uh, in my past life, in roles where um, you are doing a lot of things manually,
Mm,
right? And that's not pleasing, enjoyable for as an employee as well. So how do you get automation to help you to do your day-to-day job in a much more efficient manner so that you can expand beyond what you're doing today? All of us want to grow and learn and expand ourselves, and therefore, as long as we can look at technology to help support what we're doing, to automate some of the processes, to make sure that the errors, mistakes are reduced, so to say, the rework is reduced, and therefore expands our ability to handle more from what we're doing, and that's what we're calling efficiency. I think that'd be quite beneficial. So look for things which are very manual intensive, needs a lot of rework, etc., which is where I think there is clearly an opportunity to improve upon that. I hope that answers the question, but that's how I see it.
yeah, no, that's perfectly great. Thank you, Deepa. And when we talk about this, I think for me as just like a lay person, or even a consumer, I've always liked, being tended to by an RM, for example, or someone like that. How do you balance the fact that you're making it swifter, it's more digital, the robo advisors who are not human, for example, right? Um, how are the wealth managers, for example, negotiating this, and how do they then value add to their customers more? Would you say?
Yeah, I'm glad you use the word balance. I mean, personally, I see it the same way. I see that a human touch and a digital touch is going to coexist. Purely the way you're saying it, that you like to speak to somebody. Uh, I think broadly speaking, that coexistence, as the word is called, omni-channel. So people like to have a interactive journey where they can pick up a phone, do things themselves, get on and speak to the relationship manager or a human touch per se, get some more engagement, decision making, get back to technology and use a phone to complete the transaction. So it's going to be jumping on and off from one channel to the other. The point being, how do you make it so seamless and convenient that clients don't see them as very disjoint, disconnected journeys where, okay, now let me restart when I'm speaking to a human and let me tell my story again, versus when I go to punch in the trade and do it myself, do I have to again redo and refill all the forms? Is where the interactive piece comes in. So it's more for a blended omni-channel journey for my perspective. And I'll probably just give it a bit more example is that if you look at the whole wealth landscape and how people take the decision, uh, you got to understand your own financial capability, what you earn, what your income is, what your status, financial situation is, right? So that's one aspect that gets into needs, and therefore what kind of needs you have. You got a need for, let's say, retirement, for your kids education planning, and those kind of needs will come in. You then need to get into a decision framework, that which is the best product and solution for you to help fulfill those needs. Then you got to execute them, then you got to surveys, then you got to monitor all that. Now all that can't pretty much be done by a single interface, a human interface. You will not get the best of the service that you're looking for, and you can't do it all 100% digital.
Mm.
Obviously, if you take very simple needs where you want to take a portion of a salary, put them into a regular investment, which is based on certain rules, it goes into certain asset classes. That pretty much can be automated and be driverless, so to say, and therefore have no human touch. But when the needs get more complex, and for example, you are working in Singapore, but you got, let's say, some property in some other country, your children are studying somewhere else. Obviously, we can't talk about traveling these days, but let's say you've got traveling needs. So it comes with needs which are cross currency, cross geography. They have blend of loans, investments, saving. You're talking about protection. What happens if I'm not there? So when you're looking at a lot more complex needs, you need a mix of human touch and the digital touch to make life simpler for both of them. And I think that if I'm a relationship manager, it would make my life far more efficient if I have all the tools to understand my clients better, as well as to be able to serve them. I think one area I sort of should have touched upon is the advent of artificial intelligence and big data, which is obviously shaping the way this industry goes, to get a better insight into your own clients and get their better perspective, which is there, as well as how the APIs are coming in to build that ecosystem to be able to connect different forces of the industry together. So to clearly, the balance word that you use to start with is how I see it. But we all are part of this journey. Cars were not made driverless overnight. They went through a transition period themselves, automatic transmission, power steering and whatnot. And I'm sure the industry is going through the similar transition, obviously for the better for all of us.
Yeah, and Deepak, I mean, look, for some people who are in the audience right now listening and who are aspiring wealth managers or already, uh, maybe seasoned wealth managers, for example, and who's maybe perhaps done things, traditional ways. I mean, is there any advice or any sort of like key competencies that you believe, or a crystal ball that you feel that a wealth manager should be equipped with, perhaps?
Yeah, so if I talk about key competency, and to me, I think it boils down to one or two key headers. One is subject matter expertise. So you got to be good at what you've been doing. So clearly, the role that you're doing today. So whether you are a wealth manager, you're into operations, asset management, and be it any part of the industry that you're in, you got to have subject matter expertise in what you're doing, right? So you should have invested that time to be able to understand your day-to-day function, etc. The second area I would say is attitude. And to me, attitude, and I use this word quite a lot, is to have sort of a entrepreneurial mindset. And that doesn't mean, starting something of your own, but it basically means that do you have a sense of ownership of what you're doing?
Mm.
Often, we find that we are doing something, but we feel it's someone else's job, someone else's responsibility, and we are just part of the whole thing. Do you, I mean, do you hold the thing till the end and make sure that nothing gets dropped along the way, and have that kind of a ownership that comes in? Entrepreneurial mindset is also about having resilience, ability to solve challenges as they come, problem solving, not giving up, making sure that you are completing what you're supposed to complete. So that kind of attitude, I think, is going to help a lot. Mind you, we are in a world which is, as the acronym says, VUCA world, or I don't know how you pronounce it, a volatile environment, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. Are we able to thrive in that kind of environment, which is changing rapidly, where when we come into the office, what you intend to do versus, how the roles transform, as we were discussing earlier,
Mm.
changes. How adaptable are we to this kind of ambiguous environment? Is, I think, some of the skills which will help us, be it whether we're a wealth manager or in operation or any part of the industry, to be able to move forward with that.
Right. Thanks so much. And also, I guess the next question would be um, things that, or a topic that's quite close to our hearts, especially now that IBF is a job development partner, and it's all about like archetypes, right? Like I did a recent another session with DBS, for example, and we were exploring the different archetypes that could work, in terms of cross sector profiles that could work, and cross sector profiles that perhaps could work less well, right? So, for example, like that bank has been hiring a lot of non-banking people, UX, UI designers, and things like that. From your perspective, in your business, okay, and I don't know whether it's different from the fintech broadly, but in your business, WealthTech, for example, um, what sort of archetypes, do you think work very, very well? Even if he or she doesn't come with a banking and finance background, for example, have you seen, you know, sort of like different types of industry practitioners making jumps into banking and finance, for example, simply because the skills are portable, and what do you think those skills might be?
Yeah, so I would tend to agree with that. And again, talking from my own personal experiences and
Yeah.
how I'm seeing from the industry side, one of the areas for when we combine wealth management and technology is a play that digital has to play. And digital is a lot about, do you have the critical thinking mindset? And that doesn't have to do with a specific role you are doing attached to financial world, so to say, right? Do you have the components of design thinking? Can you look at a process and challenge the process and say that, is there a better way to do it in a more efficient manner? Obviously, you can change things at a cost, but at a more efficient manner, can you streamline it? And therefore, I think those skill sets will sort of complement not having the subject matter expertise.
Mm.
And mind you, when I spoke about the subject matter expertise, I meant in your area that you've been doing.
Okay.
Your future area, you may not have the expertise in that, and that's the reason why you want to grow and change to that. And that's a transition that I'm sure each and every one of us takes. And I always profess this, that between 10 to 30% every year, try and do something different or new, pick up a new skill, go to a new area, do some sort of an assignment in a different department, so that you're picking up that skill that comes in, and hence you're able to transit. So your past, you got to be good in that, what you've done. It doesn't have to be in the future area. As long as you have the ability to adapt yourself, learn. Are you a critical thinker? Are you a curious person who's looking for knowledge and information to be able to adapt to a new world completely? I think there are ways to transform and transit on that self.
Okay. And one of the things that reflecting on what you said, and also reflecting on the people that the IBF careers team see. We see, a lot of people from, I don't know how to say this, but maybe I use the word old tech, for example, like, legacy systems and stuff like that, maybe rendered obsolete by banks, and these people have been made perhaps redundant, for example, right? And normally these people come with significant amounts of experience, like 2 decades of experience or something like that. And that's really the demographic that my team and I we see. I mean, when you think about these people, do you think? I mean, do you think that they are too far gone, or do you think that they still have an opportunity and there are places that they can find themselves in? And what's your thoughts on a mid career? I wouldn't say it's a pivotal, but basically a mid-career reinsertion, kind of a person who's come with old skills, perhaps. What's your advice or experience, perhaps, in your own yeah.
I don't know where you're going to put me in terms of old tech, new tech per se. So yeah, so I think as the saying goes that a human body reinvents itself every 7 years, right? So all our cells, our skin, we tend to change every 7 years. So why can't we reinvent ourselves every few years? So there is no short of that. I don't think I want to typecast anybody as old tech, new tech kind of a thing. And by the way, I did a course in Python last year. With the whole, the way we were sort of in our own home environment. I thought it was an opportunity to sort of learn something new. I went to a programming Python, and Python has been there for ages. It's been there last more than 20, 30 years. And suddenly, obviously, it's a new fashion language for machine learning and AI. So I don't think things get obsolete to that sense. They have a room to play per se. But coming back to in terms of the transition part, and maybe I can share some snippets from my own personal journey,
Yeah, please.
not to profess that that's any benchmark or ideal. I have gone wrong in my own personal life as well. But I started my career, as a management trainee. Uh, there was which took me to some bit of e-com in the initial part of my career. There were some interview selection processes which happened where they felt that I could work on that. But largely, my area was in the mainstream banking of deposits, loans, FX. And then the industry was changing into unit trust, insurance coming in, and as the industry was changing, I was learning how these things can be done, and I didn't have an experience in any one of them. I had to really learn it from scratch. I moved to Singapore about 15 years back, and one of the first few conversation I had at Botkey with industry colleagues was they were all talking about options, structures, ELNs, DCIs, and these are all new words for me. I had no clue about how these things worked, but I took it upon as a challenge on myself to go through all know-how and understanding of each and everything. At that point of time, my role was a lot about transforming businesses and implementing new processes, not so much on the investment product side. And almost for the next few years, I wasn't into the investment side, but I made it a point to do a lot of reading and understanding of how the investment world works in the Singapore context. And when an opportunity came of, my organization looking at people to work on the investment side, I was quite confident that I will be able to put my hand up for that role because I'd invested myself in learning that aspect. So clearly, I think none of this will happen overnight. And I'm sort of rewording the question to say that if you want to transform yourself from one area of work to another area of work, it needs some continuous investment by yourself in those new skills, in those new knowledges over a time, to a point when an opportunity comes that you're able to raise a hand and tell your organization that I'll be interested in that area. Now, there is that famous 70-20-10 rule where learning comes 70% from challenging assignments and areas that you work on. 20% comes from relationships that you hold. 10% comes from pure educational training, right? And I think it may vary for people to people, but largely I think it's true. So in order for you to transform into a new area, you'll probably have to invest yourself in having those experiences of learning those new areas. And fortunately, I think a lot of the organizations allow people to do short-term assignments. Can you therefore devote X percentage of your time with a department where you see yourself a few years down the line, but you got to start the process today. You can't be looking at an overnight transition. So if you want to be somewhere, let's say in the next couple of years, can you start investing that time to pick up those skills and work on some of the assignments with the department, get to know those people, understand what challenges are there, what kind of skills they're looking for people, network with them to sort of obviously show an expression of interest, but more importantly, be able to understand what their role really is and to learn from there. And then as an opportunity comes over next few months to a year, and they're looking for somebody in that department, put your hand up and say that, listen, I've done this, I have picked up those skills over the last months, years, and I while it's not 100% known, but at least to a certain percentage you have that confidence to be able to do it, and the rest is obviously your attitude, I think, which takes you forward from there.
Understand. Okay, so see if you can answer this one. Sorry if I'm putting you on the spot again, but um, this one is tricky because this is also a mystery, or sometimes for the career advisors, or it's one of the challenges that we face as well. In the midst of a very challenging environment, like a employment environment, a lot of people out there. And again, don't answer this from your perspective as an HSBC employee, but maybe reflect, ABN AMRO and ANZ, where all those different, just in general, right? Um, a lot of times people, they come from, let's say, a specific area, and then they know that perhaps their role might be in so-called, maybe in jeopardy, for example, because of automation and stuff. And then they proactively try to upskill or reskill. But after that, it's very, very difficult for them to, get seen through the crowd, as in, like, because the resume or the background has been built on something else with only like a 3-6 month boot camp. I know this is a difficult question, Deepak, but I don't know whether you can afford any advice for those people who are trying to be seen, who in a situation whereby banks or employers have a wonderful spread of people. Everybody wants to get the plug and play type of individuals, right? But what about those people who are attempting to be seen and who really want to do this, and who don't benefit from being within an organization to put the hand up to do an internal transfer? I know it's a hard question, but I don't know whether or not you have any advice for folks like that.
Yeah, so maybe if you can just, maybe I not got the question correctly. So you're saying people who have not been able to have the opportunity to.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Right. So for us as a team, I think we see a lot of people who are really, really trying their best to reinvent themselves, right? And they come from certain other area, and they're very good at it. But for whatever reason, that other area is not tenable anymore. And then they upskill and they take on like data analytics or something, or 6 months Oxford FinTech program, the MIT program, for example, right? And they get it, but they find it incredibly difficult because that 6 month program doesn't negate the 20 years before that. So I think the question would be, in your perspective, I mean, how do these people stand out again in the midst of such a great selection of other plug and play? I mean, is it like a lost cause, or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, okay, no, thanks for this. And again, it's a difficult question, and every individual, every circumstance is an individual circumstance. Like I said, if I go back to the 70-20-10, I think the formal training and education can only help so much. So if I do a course and I feel that now I'm ready, I don't think it happens that easily. You have to get into the field and do some test and learn, and those short-term assignments, etc., which I spoke about, I think are quite critical. Now, if you're fortunate that your organization gives you that opportunity to sort of raise your hand and say that 10% of my time now going forward I'm going to put in that new department and help them in what they're doing, which could be 10% every day, which could be, let's say, I get attached to them for next 2 weeks and just pick up a particular assignment and show my skills and what I've learned and how I can translate that into the day-to-day environment. That I think is extremely helpful for both people. The people who will be hiring, because they've known you, they've understood you, they've, obviously you've shown great temperament in learning a new skill, and you invested your time and money in doing that. So obviously that shows a huge amount of interest. You've been doing a great job in your previous skills, and that shows again that you're somebody who can excel in what you're doing. And since you have worked for these 2 weeks, or you've done a certain time spent with this department, that helps. Now, if you may not have that opportunity within your own organization to spend time with that department, I would say, try and look at volunteering in the industry and in various forms. And I've done that myself as well. I worked with various industry bodies to say that I'm happy to volunteer, whether it is IBF, that I'm attached with and in helping in those forms, or with other associations per se. And these are as much as my voluntary time, but also a learning experience for me to be able to get onto a particular area which I may not have done it fully. So I think it works both ways. So maybe voluntary is other aspect that comes in. But I guess you got to look at those opportunities where you are able to go beyond just a course you've done to be able to translate into some practical experience to take it forward. I think that is a area that you got to fill that gap to help expedite your career change, career transition, career progress, so to say.
Understand. Okay, thanks very much for that, Deepak. I guess that ties in very nicely to, I guess, another question which may yield the exact same answer, but you have a great career, a very long career, with very very wonderful big brands, right? Big banks, for example. As a line manager, um, what impresses you? When you think when you look at candidates, or a potential candidate to join yourself. Not just, again, say not HSBC, but just generally as you as a experienced hiring manager. What sort of traits or skills, even stuff that you see on a resume, for example, what are the things that really attract you, and impress you?
Yeah, I think probably I'm going to pick up things where spoken so far. So clearly, I would look at a demonstration of the fact that you've been good at what you've been doing so far. So it doesn't have to match to what we're looking at right now or I'm looking at right now. But you got to be good at what you've done so far. That shows that you have an ability to excel. To be able to excel means you have invested a lot of effort and time that goes in. And I think the attitude, the value, the culture part is quite important. Is that, are you a curious person? Are you somebody who is more forward looking? Are you somebody who can challenge the status quo? Are you willing to give it a best? Do you own things or do you not own things? I think that attitudinal part, which is obviously through discussions and through any kind of a discussion process, to be able to demonstrate how you have not given up, how you've actually been in a difficult situation in your life and turned that around and made it a success, or how you failed and how do you take failure in the past, or how you took on a new skill, and it could be not related to work, it could be a new hobby or an interest you took on. So some sort of a validation of how you've been able to show those kind of cultures, values. I think that'll be quite important. Obviously, for anybody on this platform who's looking at hiring, it has to be fair hiring principle. You got to make sure that you're going through a fairness process. You got to make sure that you have a diversity in your team, etc. That's quite important to look at. But beyond that, I think you got to look at you've done well, you excelled in your previous work, and you have an attitude, culture, value, which helps to solidify that you will be the right person for the role. That, let's say, anybody looking at.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. Just writing notes. And I suppose I want to ask you a very broad question, which is the crystal ball question. In your business, in wealth tech in general, what do you see are the future trends, maybe even challenges that you might face, you will soon face, or in the future, and what general trends do you think will develop in your area in particular? Anything at all?
Yeah, I mean that's a amazing opportunity question, so to say. And I think I'm proud that being in Singapore, it's a place where wealth management is thriving in a big way, and I'm talking about more as an industry as such. There's a huge growth, by any report that you look at it, high single digits to double digit growth rate that's coming in on the wealth arena. Singapore obviously gives the right kind of environment for this kind of a business to flourish. There is massive difference happening at a client level. So what customers used to think of as a trust factor when deciding to do the wealth management is changing. They're putting a lot of importance to convenience, uh, how simple is it to interact with the bank and to deal with that. There is a lot of personalization that's coming in. So data analytics is a very important part of the whole spectrum per se. So in terms of trends, there is lots that's happening from the wealth industry growth, the change in demographics, the interest level of customers. And that I think is going to throw up on a lot many more opportunities for each one of us to transform, reskill, or to take charge and say this is how the industry is going to lead the front, because this is a nascent stage per se, where a lot of these new developments are coming in, and to take charge and lead from there on. So clearly, there's a very high, interesting opportunity which is along the cards.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Deepa. I guess that crystal ball question was really my final question. I think I put you through the grinder enough already. So I noticed right now that there are some questions that we have. So maybe we'll just answer a few, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
All right. So again, as expected from my analysis of the demographic, we have some careers question, right? So the first one, this gentleman says, I'm in my late 40s. Is it too late to join the industry?
So I'm assuming the person is not from a wealth or a finance background. Yeah, so I think it's like I said, it all boils down to the personal circumstances. And if you've been somebody who can bring the elements which can complement the skills that are required for the industry is looking for. Like I mentioned, are you somebody who can think critically? Are you good at designing processes? Or other aspects. There are some of the examples, obviously, that are coming at the top of my head in terms of where I've been interacting. But why not? There's a great example of how technology companies are coming into the banking wealth management world. There are super apps which are coming onto the wealth management and banking world. So why not, at an individual level? So clearly there is mindset that has to be positive to say that you've got the right ingredients to be able to make the transition. It's not going to be an overnight transition. I think one has to be very practical about it. So things like I said, making your inroads and connection with the industry folks, talking to them, doing some sort of a experience, etc., to be able to validate that you are the right candidate. I'm sure it can work quite positively.
Okay. Sir, I hope, or ma'am, I hope that answers the question. The next question. If I am in the IT of a non-financial industry, would it be easy for me to transit into this job? Or I suppose what he means is your area.
Yeah, so I think I'm not, obviously from a technology background as such, but as somebody who is, let's say, and I'm sure the roles are compatible from a skill. So if you've been doing, let's say, database management, cloud is a new area for the industry as well. So if you're somebody who's well versed with those aspects, so clearly I'm sure those complementary arenas will come in. Mind you, a lot of the new age things like we spoke about, robo, etc., are all dependent on technology skills coming in. So clearly that can come in. I'm just sort of going to make a very off the cuff example here, but I'm sure when NASA is looking for astronauts, it's a challenge for them that they look at astronauts and train them into geology, or they look at people who are geologists and train them into being an astronaut. So I think you got to have those skills which can complement, and how well you can transport into the industry. I'm sure it can be done in terms of how it's coming in.
Okay, great. And then just going down the next one. Okay, so this one is on the other side of the spectrum. I am a fresh graduate, and I would like to join this industry, your industry. Where can I start?
Yeah, so I think there are a lot of banks and financial institutes which interact with the placement programs with different colleges. So I'm not sure where he or she is from, but clearly I think leverage on that. Every organization has a career page where you could express your interest and apply from there. So feel free to obviously look at different institutes, financial institutes, and their career pages, and keeping a tab of what kind of roles that are coming in. And many of them have student placement programs. They have management training programs, graduate programs, to sort of apply for them and make sure that you're able to start from there. Many of these programs are also quite interesting from as a very solid training foundation. Many financial institutes invest in graduate trainees in the first few years to make sure that they are able to move from one department to the other department and understand the different facets of a bank, how it works, from operations, from loans to wealth management to digital, etc. And therefore you can move around that, and that then therefore gives you a choice or an opportunity to assess yourself and ask yourself, is that within the different areas, where do you want to be? And mind you, I'm sure you'll keep changing your career path, every few years in terms of picking up new skills. But it gives you an assessment time to sort of look at where you want to be. So, go with that.
Can I just, on behalf of the person that posted it, Deepak, something just came to my mind. Like, when you reflect when you were a grad and then you fast forward to where you are now, was there anything specifically that you said, oh shucks, I should have done this, I should have studied this, and it would have been so helpful? I mean, from this person's perspective, are there any specific things or that maybe this person should invest in, as a fresh graduate? Now's the time to really invest in XYZ. What could XYZ be?
Yeah, so I think the famous saying all around that in the initial year, take risk. I would say, so don't get too typecasted and hold yourself back and try and think too much. Every one of us has 20, 30, 40 years of career life. Make sure that you are able to not really follow a particular path in the beginning. Be flexible, open-minded. Start with the opportunity which interests you, work with that and move a way forward. At a young age, I think you are allowed to take risk. When I say risk, these are personal risks I'm talking about in terms of going into a particular area of working, reinventing yourself, and looking at things. Try and look at work which are more end-to-end, more broad-based rather than very narrow niche per se. That will give you a spectrum of what the whole value chain is and where you want to invest your future career to be. And as you go into your third, fifth year of your career, then start to sort of, if you want to narrow down in terms of where you want to be, start doing that. But try and keep your area as open, as wide as possible. You could be in a bank, on the sales side, on a product management side, on digital side. You could be sitting in asset management tomorrow. You could be sitting in insurance. So try and keep that kind of a flexibility and be open to getting into new areas, and not hold back what you're doing just because you've been good at that, but try and change along the way. And I think the first 5-10 years are a really good time period to do that, to be able to keep learning new skills before you start to solidify into something.
Okay, thank you, Deepak. And then moving down to the next one, I work as an insurance agent for more than 10 years, and I want to move to wealth management / private banking space. What would you suggest so that I will be relevant to join the private banking world? Ooh, I mean, I don't know. I mean, do you think you're gonna take a stab at this?
Yeah. So when I moved to Singapore in the early part, my role was to set up the bank assurance department for them, right? So it was more about insurance. And I think, like I was mentioning earlier, that during this period, I was looking at and learning up on a lot of the investment products, the technical skills around it, reading product sheets, etc., to be able to expand myself when the opportunity came. And when the opportunity came on the investment side, I put my hand up and I was quite confident around it because I had invested so much time and effort in terms of learning. So my sense is that any sort of a transition from, and it's part of the same financial planning world, is to be able to invest in learning those things. There are multiple courses, accreditations available, CFP, CFA, to be able to get that theoretical knowledge, but also be able to put your hand up in trying to move differently. Obviously, being an insurance person shows that you're good in sales, you understand client conversations, and it's not an easy product area to have a conversation with customers. It's not an easy topic to talk about. So since you've been doing that, you have the necessary skills to soft skills to be able to have those engagement with a client. And if it is a question of picking up the relevant um, product knowledge, spend that time and pick that up so that when the opportunity comes, you're able to apply for those roles and demonstrate that you have the right skills to move into that area.
Okay. I guess, okay, so the next question is, I think you covered it, but maybe you want to just sort of like reiterate. So this person has, and Deepak, this is the, as I said, this is the kind of the population that we deal with, and the people that we try to help. So I have 25 years in wealth operations, and I left the industry for a couple of years. I'm trying to get back into the industry, but I'm facing challenges. Anything you can suggest for me to do differently apart from keeping active in job applications? That's yeah.
Yeah, I think it also depends on what you did in this time period. A lot of people take a break from the industry to, let's say, start something, some business of their own, or let's say educating, or maybe for family reasons. I think it's important that how have you sort of spend that time to be able to keep in touch. And I don't know how much, or what length of a time you were off that. So it's important to sort of demonstrate what you've been able to bring back during this time period to be able to join back on the industry. There are no doors to be. Uh, I think it's an opportunity, right? It's a knock every door, and you've got to be applying and talking to people and make a connections back. Maybe some old folks you knew who are now working in the industry who can introduce you to, certain areas, just to keep the interest level known. It's not all about talking to people for a job, because that may not be happening. But if you're at least connecting with people for interest level, it shows that you're interested, and they'll think about you when the time comes. To come back to that, it's not I'm sure it's not easy if you've been actively looking for it, but keep the optimism high, keep the confidence high that it should work out.
Great. And I guess the last question that we have posted would be, okay, what are the key ingredients or skills for a role in wealth tech? Key ingredients and skills.
So, like I said, it's not a very specialized area, so to say, which is typecasted per se. And like I said, I'll even probably struggle to find a formal definition for it.
Okay.
I think if you are somebody who are either a person who understands wealth management from a product, customer engagement, sales journey, how clients make a decision, financial planning, or you're somebody who is good at design processes that comes in. Or somebody who can bring the technology aspect to this. I think it's a combination of some of these aspects, and no one person will be a champion across all of them. So as long as you're adept at one of the areas, you can give it a go at it, and therefore make it work.
Okay. I guess that was the end of our long list of questions. Now I know that we finished in pretty good time. But Deepak, can I just ask you thoughts and final words, for the people that have joined us here today, pieces of advice, words of encouragement, anything, that you want to say to job seekers, perhaps, who are in session with us today?
So I think, first of all, I'm very thankful that you invited me here. It's been quite a privilege. By no means I profess that my career has been or should be a benchmark to look at. I'm sure I've made many mistakes there. But to everybody, I think it's a very interesting industry to be in. It's something that is growing at a very fast pace. Singapore is the right place where the banking financial industry is growing, and it is branching into different areas. It's moving away from traditional wealth management to how data analytics comes into play, how artificial intelligence, machine learning comes into play. So look at the different facets of the industry, and it doesn't have to be a super specialization. It can be a generalist role as well. But yeah, keep your optimism on to make sure that you're able to keep moving on in the industry, because we don't know how it's going to unfold and be what it is like in the next 5-10 years, 15, 20 years. So make sure that you're able to keep adapting yourself, keep reskilling yourself to be part of this industry and growing, and maybe a flag bearer. I mean, you want to be the poster child of the industry to take it forward as well and show what can be done and what is the real benchmark. Look at those heights.
Fantastic. Okay, well, I mean, I guess I before we sort of like wrap up and go for the poll, I mean, for the people who are in attendance, um, we sort of like portioned like an hour and a half, because most of my guests, they are not as quick and sharp as as in like to answer questions like Deepak. So we made really really good time. Now, for the people who are here, can I just ask you to just stay on, Deepak, just hang on for a second as well, while we just launch a very, very quick poll. And as I mentioned, the poll is very important for us to actually triangulate or get a bit more information on the stuff that you want to be seeing, and how you felt about this about the session and how it went for you and whether you benefited from it. So if I could ask one of my colleagues to just launch the poll, there you go. For the people that are joining us via the phone, I'm just going to quickly read out the poll, okay? The first question really is, do you find today's session useful for you on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest? Please take some time to just quickly click that. I hope we're getting responses. Yeah, very quickly. The second question is, were you able to relate to the advice or takeaways provided by the speaker, in this case, Deepak? Right? Fantastic. And the third one, okay, some of you are really, really fast. How likely are you to apply some of the advice and takeaways? Fantastic, okay. And the last one is very, very mouthful, and I think you guys have read it already because you guys are answering already, right? Sector insights from a variety of things. Let us know what you want to you want to be seeing, and then who you want to be seeing here. And we will try our very, very level best to bring some of these guests to demystify things, to tell you things about their own experience, their own journeys, and obviously pieces of advice that hopefully you can bring away with you. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a few seconds to just finish that for those people who haven't actually put in the poll yet. Yeah, I don't know how to see whether everyone has done it, because for me, I'm not a tech guy in any case. So I think we've got quite a number of oh, hang on a second. No, I can see. We got like 15 out of 40 who voted. Guys, come on, give us some feedback so that we can tailor this a little bit more. Yeah. Okay, almost 50%. It's great. The reason why I'm holding Deepak is because the minute I let him go, everyone's gonna leave and no one's gonna do the poll. So so just hang in there with me.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is very important.
Yes, yes, and also I think one of the things as well, Deepak also is looking for some feedback as well, because I might be disturbing him again sometime throughout the year to ask him to do a repeat session again. I hope you'll say yes, Deepak.
No, absolutely. I mean, this is a pleasure talking to you, Adrian, and really enjoyed this conversation. So yes, anytime you feel this will be helpful again.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I don't know how many people else are going to be responding. Please keep on responding to us so that we can really tailor some hard-hitting kind of sessions for you guys, okay? But I suppose if there's nothing left, I want to be saying thank you so much, Deepak, for being here with us, being a supportive fellow to the IBF. We hope to see you again. Thank you so much for the advice that you've imparted. Thank you also for educating me, because I really didn't know, my training's in something else altogether, as we spoke before. So I think you demystified a few things for me and gave me a bit more information that I can hopefully relay to the job seekers that I see as well. Now, guys, on the screen, the attendees in session, what you see on the screen right now is this last slide. Follow us on LinkedIn. The QR code on the first one is the IBF website. And I guess the last thing is that next session that I'll be doing on the 2nd of February on 2021, I'll be speaking with the Boston Consulting Group on digital skills for the future. They've done some studies, and I'm just going to speak to a couple of them to find out what their research has yielded and found. And I hope to share it with some of you. So that's the QR code for signing up. Hope to see some of you there. Without further ado, Deepak, thank you so much again for being here. Thank you also attendees for spending this time with us. And we hope to see you again very, very soon. Take care.
Thank you very much. And thank you to you, Adrian, and all the attendees. Thank you.
Take care, Deepak. See you
Bye.
again. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.